The strange thing was that initially we were having trouble getting people to want to be in the film and to want to be part of it. And Glenn was the most powerfully enthusiastic and passionate person to want everybody to do it. And everyone was standing back and waiting to see, is John going to say, I can do this, or should I? And I think John really saw himself as someone that, I think he felt that a documentary would just be too invasive. And some artists just really enjoy the idea of looking back at their career, and others don't. They don't want to get in the way of whatever Factor X they have. They don't want to understand it or really dig into it too much. So I think he came from the latter camp. Yeah, so it was like 12 months of working up who are we going to do this with, who the partner's going to be, and will John actually agree to do it? And we were always on tenterhooks to see if he'd do that, and then he said yes to it. And we were just stoked.
All the people, they first wanted to know that John was okay about being spoken about. But once they were reassured by his team, they were very happy to talk. And in fact, a lot of them had never, ever publicly spoken about their involvement with him and his journey. Glenn was interviewed before his death. We had no inkling, no one knew that 6 months later he wouldn't be with us anymore. Glenn's relationship with John is like no other. There's possibly no other manager-artist as close as Glenn and John.
The passing of Olivia and Glenn and John's illness have been a huge change and momentous in the project. When he passed away, it was just like this enormous shock to us. And then Gaynor Wheatley took over, and you could just feel the project, the wheels start to turn again. She's done an incredible job.
I wanted to be involved with this because, apart from being a huge fan, I love John, and I wanted to do it for Glenn. It is vital that we make this film about John Farnham. I think this will be our last opportunity to actually say what needs to be said.
Possibly my favourite person and character in the film is Gaynor Wheatley. Her witness to the story and to what's played out, she's there, slightly removed. Her perception of the events is very clear, and she's almost the narrator of the film, and so trusted and fun, and got a great turn of phrase and a humour that is very engaging and warm. Everybody that I interviewed really surprised me and intrigued me with their recollection of the story. They had so many personal moments to share and very revealing events in the life and career of John. Bev Harrell's recall of the night in Kahuna, she was doing 7 or 8 gigs a week, and she remembers that night with such clarity, and John's voice, and knowing the power of his voice and almost having a premonition of what was to come for him was just incredible. Daryl Braithwaite, just a wonderful perspective from the late 60s, 70s, 80s, right through the 90s.
I was really taken aback when I was asked to, explain what I know about or how I feel about John Farnham, because of the fact that we look up to him. And I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of the musical fraternity in Australia, that we do look up to him as the singer, the one that thrills people, thrills us, and we love him.
To David Hirschfelder's musical genius and bringing us all in on his process and the palette of Whispering Jack. I could hear him talk about Fairlights and musical synthesizers probably all afternoon.
I'm really excited to be in this film because this is a part of my life which is unique and absolutely indispensable. I wouldn't be me now if it was not for being with John. I think it's shaped the way I communicate to people. I think he's been an incredible mentor for me. And so I wanted to be part of this so I could share in those happy memories and that great time in my life and that high point, one of the high points of my career as a young performing musician. It just doesn't get any better than that. And so I was thrilled to be asked to be part of this, to be honest, and delighted to be able to speak about it.
Ross Fraser's sparing but right-on assessment of the scene and the situation. Everybody has been incredibly generous and open-hearted, and everybody loves John.
I think that John's story is important to be told just because he's held such a place in so many people's lives for so long in this country. Music has a way of marking moments in your life, that nothing else can mark. So you'll hear a song, it'll transport you to a time in your life, whether it's a good or bad. People can almost mark where they were on days by listening to John's career. Because I remember being 10 years old, living in Elizabeth when I heard Sadie. I remember hearing You're the Voice and thinking, God damn, who wrote this? Who's singing that? It's John. So I think John's career is really important because it means so much to so many people. I wanted to be involved in this because I wanted to say all I could about John because I haven't had the opportunity to really tell. I always get up and I say, oh, he's a great singer. He's one of my favorite singers. He's this and that. But John is a salt of the earth, pure, decent, great singing chap who I adore. One of my favorite people in the world, and I think he's a guy who's championed Australian music. He's been in the charts for 50, 60 years and doesn't look like going away. And I just wanted to be involved in this because he's such a bloody great singer.
Brett, take 3, behind the scenes.
I played guitar with John Farnham for the past nearly 40 years. And I was the only guitar player on Whispering Jack and Age of Reason, and continued on throughout John's career until current day. When I heard that a documentary was being done about John and his incredible career, I was all for it. It's something I've been wanting to watch, let alone be privileged enough to be a part of. So it's been a long time coming, and I'm glad that it's finally happening. I think John's one of those artists that's been around for so long and been valid and active for so long that he's just part of our cultural consciousness now. And it's just beautiful to see that his career escalated to the heights that it did rather than him fading away into nostalgia. He's as popular now as he ever was and should be.
Vanetta Fields, EPK, A&B Mark.
It's important to make this film because John is has had one of the best careers so far in Australia. It's history making. And he has one of the finest voices Australia has ever produced.
Excitingly, John is a very well documented musician in Australia, and there's been some wonderful archive and some surprising archive that has come up through digging. There's lots of known footage of him, but there's been nice discovery of not only 16mm and home videos, but home photos and a whole lot of negatives that came up amazingly through the head of the fan club and John's personal archive, which he's shared with us very graciously.
So it's been a real gift to be able to tell it. I can't believe that we've been fortunate enough to land in this situation, but it's also been a bit of a weight on the shoulders to get it right. I can't begin to tell you how much, but it has been a lot of responsibility.